Hello everybody, this is Michael Lee coming to you outside of Helltown in Centerville, small towns in Butte County, Northern California, campfire area. Alright, so all the cutting with the chainsaw, all the weed whacking and brush cutting with the trimmer and brush cutter is done. It's done on this on the at least the upper portion of this 45-acre property, so it's time for us to do a full property tour of the work. I love making these videos because it helps me kind of keep a video record of the work that I've done, and you can go back and watch my older videos and do a before and after, compare and contrast what the property looked like before I began working and what it looks like now that I'm done. Well, we're not completely done. We still have to do some cleanup. We still have to split firewood and haul firewood down the hill to the first property I started on, Doug's property, and he wants all the firewood. So that's the last thing we have to do, but all the chainsaw work is done. All the brush cutting is done. So let's start the tour here. So willow I trimmed. It's fall, so the leaves are dropping. There's acorn woodpeckers living in this one. I left them enough room on that top branch so they can add a second story to their house if they want to. Have an acorn woodpecker mansion going. And then I'm gonna go stand on this rock so you can see the canyon I'm working in. It looks a lot nicer now compared to a few years ago, right after the fire. So, beautiful. Beautiful. It's the canyon I'm working in. I love this blue oak. That's a beautiful blue oak. And there's the canyon. Beautiful. So down this road, 10 seconds is Doug's property. That's where I started. That's where all the firewood's going. So, all right. Let's begin. So here's all the metal I removed from the upper portion of this 45-acre property. It's hard to see the barbed wire's camouflage, but pulled all of this from the property. It's old ranching property, sheep mostly, I believe. Look at all this barbed wire. So if you're working for property owners, make sure you remove all the excess metal that's not being utilized anymore. It's just old and rusty and sitting there. Because if you leave it, that's really a horrible thing to do, you know. Don't just like get it out of the way of the tree that you're cutting and then just like throw it on the ground. Make sure you organize it into one place and then eventually remove it from the property and recycle it if you can. I'm taking this to the waste management facility and then they'll recycle it there. So make sure to do that. Make sure to clean up all the metal and garbage from the properties that you work. Here's some more. I remember pulling this one out. That was not fun. here we go. This should look familiar, everybody. This is where I started. Actually, I started in that corner, fence line, and I worked, starting up here, I worked all the way down to the pond that's down there. And that's the upper section of this 45-acre property. The lower section I'll do next year. Okay, we just got some storms, some rain. So hopefully we'll be allowed to burn in the next month or two, and I can start burning these burn piles. And then we got to get all of this firewood split into smaller pieces and taken over to Doug's. This is predominantly blue oak here. Western fence lizard. Some interior live oak. This is blue oak and interior live oak. Look at how nice and clean and open and fire resistant this looks. No low limbs, no brush and noxious weeds. Very nice. Much better now. What a dramatic improvement. Okay, let's go up here. This was the first burn pile I made. Man, this looks good. You can see the cliffs now because it's more open. This is all blue oak. I'll have to split some of the bigger rounds. This is all blue oak. Now, if you remember, the last thing that we did was we removed these blue oak stumps that had the barbed wire running through them. And I removed 3 stumps. The last day I worked here, all had barbed wire running through them. I only hit barbed wire once. Just got lucky. But got even all the stumps cleaned up that had barbed wire in them. So like everything is done. Everything is done. Just gotta get rid of the firewood now. Another blue oak I cut. Now, I really hope this black oak makes it, but it's drooping more now than it ever has. I love black oaks. This thing survived the campfire. This thing's a badass, but it's got this huge crack. See that crack? It's got this huge crack, massive crack. You know, that's a serious crack. I'm just not sure if this tree is gonna make it. I hope so. I hope it makes it. I hope all the trees that I left make it. Big drop off here. There's where I did the domino falling of the 2 dead blue oaks. Cut some more blue oaks up here. Cut a half-dead ponderosa pine that was leaning. Did a lot of limbing up here, weed whacking brush cutter. But this was the first section I worked. And it looks great. So let's continue down. Really go back and watch my older videos so you can see watch the very, very first property tour I gave here, where I walked actually up the hill from Doug's property and showed this property in its raw state before I started working. So if you're interested in doing like a before and after, go back and watch that first property tour. This was a fun one. This was a big dead blue oak. This was a fun one to cut. God, this was a big tree and it made a huge noise because I fell it down slope. There's what I call the pit. The old ranchers that lived here had a big garbage pit here. That's been cleaned up already by the property owner, and then I filled it with a bunch of burn material, a bunch of limbs and branches. So that's where we'll do a big burn when we're allowed to. Firewood, mostly blue oak. Firewood, mostly blue oak and pine. Firewood, blue oak. Here's another blue oak we cut. And then here's this was the half-dead ponderosa pine leaner. Even though I cut it a month ago, it still got sap coming out of it. This tree's got some barbed wire in it. Look how nice and open it looks now. Now this was a difficult area. There was a bunch of leaners, a bunch of dead trees. There's about 5 or 6 trees down here that were just an absolute disaster, leaning on each other, and they were all over this pit. And I kind of fell them, and they all fell at the same time. And then I did these ones up here. This was a sketchy area. This is a stump from one of the trees that used to be here. See how crazy it was? This was a crazy area. Looks good now, though. Looks great now. Firewood, blue oak. That blue oak trunk stays here for habitat for the critters. That blue oak trunk stays there for habitat for the critters and for soil erosion control Work here. Burn pile, burn pile, burn pile. I'm not necessarily going to do these burn piles right where they are now. I might move them a little bit. But I basically just needed to get all this crap out of the way. So I got at least a half a dozen burn piles here on this property. Look at this tree. Got torched good by the campfire, but it's still going strong. Mature, healthy, strong trees do not get killed by fires, just their bark burns. Maybe their lower limbs burn, but that's it. They shake it off. And you'll see old growth trees, especially in California, will mostly have fire scars. Sometimes multiple fire scars as they've survived multiple fires over the years. A lot of them will also have scars from lightning strikes at the top of their trees. Because if you're an old growth tree, you've been around for a couple hundred years at least, and you've seen some things happen, some natural disasters, some chaos, but they just survive everything and keep going. That's why I don't cut big healthy live trees. I just don't do it because they're the most fire resistant. Everything I do is from the perspective of fire safety. So remember this is where I helped the old growth blue oak here, which I think is at least 150 years old. Look at this tree. And I helped this old growth by getting rid of this lower dead limb that was a ladder fuel. And I rounded it off, sanded it off so that it's Nice and smooth and natural looking. Remember this video, everybody? Go watch this video if you want to learn how to cut a lower dead limb off properly and have it look nice. So, all right, let's go down here now. It's kind of amazing just walking around this property now. So many months of work. Oh my gosh, this took me forever, everybody. So much work. Good Lord. I hope this blue oak makes it. I did a lot of work on it. I removed this skanky, wiry interior live oak that was like growing way too close to it. Remember this? That's a nice looking stump there. I did a good job. I did a great job on this stump. Look at that one. That's a good one. So I hope this thing thrives now that it's got more living space. God, this looks good, man. This looks really good. This is one of the best properties I've ever done. This looks really good now that I'm down here and we got some rain. Dang, this looks good. This is what you want your property to look like. Well, I haven't done down there yet, and I haven't done down there, but this is what you want your property to look like. Native Americans would call this clean, right? Before I started working on this property, Native Americans would have called it dirty, but now it's clean. If you're interested in my land management techniques, I basically copy precisely what California Native Americans, indigenous people did. Read M. Cat Anderson's Tending the Wild and The Way We Lived by, I think it's Mabel McKay. I may have gotten that author wrong, but Tending the Wild by M. Cat Anderson and The Way We Lived. Get those two books. It will teach you how Native Americans managed the land. And I basically just copy them, except I'm an industrial guy, so I use chainsaws. But other than that, I just copy them. Now we get into some ponderosa pine, and this will be easy splitting. Just like it was easy bucking with my chainsaw, this is going to be easy splitting. This pine is a soft wood. See all this ponderosa pine? And then this is back to the interior live oak, blue oak mix, which is a hardwood. That's not going to be fun to split. Oh, this looks good. This just looks so good. This looks so good, everybody. Oh, this is going to be fun to split. I'm going to bring my 8-pound maul down here and just have at it. So, I went through great lengths to save out all these trees that are still here. I saved even these little ones like this little cedar there and this little Doug fir. I saved out on purpose. Hopefully they make it. I went through great lengths to save out all the live trees. I cut only half dead stuff and full dead stuff here. Or they were a hazard tree in some regard and needed to go. And I also cut one live interior live oak just to open things up more. Other than that, dead stuff only. There's the soil erosion control networks I built on the far bank. That far bank looks amazing. I'm going to have to make a separate video just of that far bank. That far bank was a dramatic transformation. See all that? And that's where the structures are around here. So I really hit that far bank hard all the way down to there. I have a black oak wood pile over there. So this is basically it. This is as far as I went. There's a pond down there. And as you can tell, I haven't done anything below here. This was the lowest tree I cut here. This was a big boy. This was a big boy. I bucked a few rounds off of it, but from here down, we're leaving it. We are leaving it for habitat. It's far enough away from the houses. We're just gonna leave it. For the western fence lizards, Sierra alligator lizards, king snakes, garter snakes, wood rats, mice. And there's the stump. And I left this stump. This is the only stump I didn't round and mushroom cut because this was the biggest tree I cut, and it's got really visible growth rings on it. So I wanted to preserve the history here, the chronology, the dendrochronology, right? Wood time dendrochronology. That's the technical term for reading growth rings on a tree to study history or natural history or ecology. Dendrochronology. It's a good way to go back and look at the fire record too, and the drought record, and which years were rainy and which years were drought in California by looking at the spacing of the growth rings. There's so much you can tell. There's so much you can tell from a stump. So much you can tell. Okay, see? It's almost like this is just like the border between Haiti and the Dominican Republic, right? It's like besides the Dominican Republic, it's all nice and clean and it's had some work done on it. And then here's Haiti. This is the Haiti side of the island. It's just chaos still. I haven't worked down here. There's some crazy lean and hazard trees down here. And then there's the pond. So, can you see the line now? That's where I worked. Everything up here is done. Let's continue over here. My battery's gonna die in a minute, but let's hit this last area here. This is where all those crazy leaners were that were leaning on these two trees. This ponderosa pine's still leaning, but now give it a couple months and it will straighten out. Now that it doesn't have two enormous dead trees leaning on it.